Right, welcome guys. I see lots of repeat folks from the other webinars, which is so awesome. Got my e-manage stars in the house today because this is definitely going to be more of an advanced webinar from some of the others. We're going to dive as deep as you guys want to into the Telerik Report Designer. So we'll go ahead and get started. But yes, what are we going to be talking about today? What is the Report Designer? We're going to talk a little bit about what you can use it with and how you can use it. So changing some base reports and saving those custom reports and how to use alternatives. We'll also talk about some settings, and along the way, we'll talk about some tips and tricks that I can share with you guys and best practices. I will say that I am not the report expert on the eManage team, but I'm going to share with you guys as much as I think that you all need to know. If anything ever is needed outside of this scope and you're feeling like the report that you're looking for is maybe a little bit more advanced than what I can share with you today, definitely reach out to us. We do custom reports at a small hourly rate. So if there is something that's a little bit more advanced than what you're comfortable with, definitely reach out to us. If we can't guide you on how to do that easily, it's something that you can definitely hire us to do. So we are going to dig in. So thanks for joining us. What is the report designer, first of all? If you have never even dabbled in this, I want to share kind of what you can use this for. So if we're talking about any type of PDF style reports in eManage, whether that be from the analysis menu where you're running maybe some higher level company reports down to maybe something as small as a purchase order. When you hop into these windows and you click the print button or save and print and a quote, anything like that. And I'm just going to pull up a report here. Pull up what I call a PDF style report, right? This is built by the Telerik Report Designer. Behind the scenes of this report, we're pointing to a lot of different fields in eManage to pull data from eManage to build a nice looking, clean PDF style document. That's what the Telerik Report Designer is used for. Okay. So if you're looking to customize these reports a little bit further, maybe there's something that you always want to print on a document. I'm going to use the purchase order today actually as an example, but we are going to talk about some of the more intricate designed reports. But the purchase order is a simple report that I like to use as an example. You wanted to always print your warehouse hours or your send acknowledgements to, maybe some instructions that you always want to print on the document. At this point, most of you should know that we have builders throughout the system. So we know that, in the special instructions, you can place some text in what we call a scope builder. We've seen it throughout the program. Maybe you've seen it here in the project information and the scope of work. We have it all over the place. We have some scope builders tucked into the quotes. You have to go into those and select them. So if it's going to be something that changes here and there, but you're going to reuse that text, that's what you use the scope builders for. But if it's something you always want to print on a document, or maybe you want to just change up the way that this document looks slightly. Maybe it's you want the text to print slightly larger, or you don't want the ship via to be on here. Little things like that, changing of the way that the fields where they print or the text size of them. That's what we're going to be talking about today with the Telerik Report Designer. Any questions just in general about what you can use this for? Don't forget to use the chat room. I'm paying attention to that. Got a couple of eManage staff members in there as well, paying attention to the chat room. If there's something that I miss. But also don't hesitate to unmute and speak up. These webinars have been so much fun. I feel like everybody's been kind of chiming in and giving a lot of really good feedback. So keep that coming. Okay, I'm going to keep it moving then. I think we all understand what we're in for today. So how do we change a base report? When I speak to the words base report, when you go and print, again, these PDF style looking documents throughout the program, the report, the default report is what I will refer to as the base report. What is the canned reports built into eManage? Okay, so how do we change a base report? Where do we access these reports? How do I get into Telerik? All of those things we're going to go through. So first of all, you guys may have dabbled in this a little bit, but if we go up to tools at the very top toolbar here and we go to custom reports, this is where you can access the report designer. But I'm going to show you a tip and trick that I really like to use to get to something quickly. Yes, you can open up the report designer and you can build your own reports just from scratch. We're not going to get into that today. It's a little bit more advanced than I think we're all looking for. We're going to be talking about some basics here today. So, but more advanced than regular users need to know about, of course. But yes, you can just open up the report designer. It's built into the program. It comes with eManage at no additional cost. It's just built into your contract. So you can access it at any point. We are going to dive into some of these other areas in just a little bit, but I'm going to show you a tip to get to reports directory, which if you go to file and open eManage file location, you're going to see reports directory tucked in there. So if I hop in there, it's going to take me straight to where all of the reports that make up everything that we see prints inside of eManage, they're all tucked in here. Now, in my reports directory, you're going to see some customs from some other companies. We're going to talk about some best practices on how you should name your own reports. That way, you can access them later if you need to change them and things like that. But just kind of ignore if you're seeing some in here that aren't in yours. It's because I can get into everybody's databases and access everyone's custom reports. But this is where all the reports live. So for example, this purchase order that we're looking at, sometimes it can be tricky on what we name them. We try to be consistent. There's some that have been living in here for so long. We might end up changing them to make it a little bit easier. But if you ever aren't sure what report to access, definitely reach out to support and say, hey, I want to modify the purchase order report as an example. But I went down to the P's and I'm looking for purchase order or PO, and all I see is PO details. And I open this up and it's maybe not giving me what I'm looking for. So this one's one little tricky one. I always forget about this, but our purchase order is called 1PO. 1PO. Okay. And we're typically looking for the TRDP reports. This is the updated report extension that Telerik came out with. We used to work with TRDX files, but now we work with TRDP files. So if you do see two different files in there because you've been with eManage for some time, you might have a couple of old ones in there. Always try to remember to work with that TRDP file. So I'm going to open up the 1PO. Because I've been in Telerik before, it knows that I'm opening this document up in Telerik, that particular file extension. If you don't see like this, maybe this little symbol here, it might tell you that you need to locate a program to open that file up. And it is tucked inside of our eManage files, I believe. Rabia, if you're with us, I want to say if you just go into and you go to reports and you open up the report designer first, it should then know that you have Telerik on your computer, and then you should be able to go into open eManage to it. Try this application directory. I want to say it's in here. Yep, tucked inside the eManage files. Okay, so if it tells you, hey, you need to find a program to open up that report, be able to navigate to it from your C drive, program files, e-manageONE, and the Telerik Report Designer's tucked in there. I got to it easily from File, another quick little tip and trick, Application Directory. This is all the files that make up eManage, everything that makes eManage work. Without the code, of course. All right, so when I opened up 1PO, I'm sitting in our base report. So once you get past the little, I should go ahead and note right now that if you, my favorite folks that use the help file religiously, all of this is in here. We're in Report Designer. So we've got, modify and save, a little video here that kind of walks through some of the things that I'm going over today. This will just be a newer version of it. And we'll get that loaded in, but how to modify and save, report alternatives, specifically terms and conditions, something you guys all deal with often. One report that you all want to know how to modify. So definitely touch into the report designer in our help guide to support some of this information we're going to be going over today. Once you navigate to the report that you want to customize, the very first thing that you should do, okay, you're taking away anything from this, do not override the base reports, okay? You're just going to put yourself in a world of hurt of recreating the same thing that you're creating over and over again. Every time we come out with an update, and it overrides, the base report, you're just going to be redesigning that report or remodifying that report that you've made changes to. So the very first thing that you want to do is save over this. Before you start making any changes, I will tell you this is the first thing you need to do. So I go File, Save As, and because I've been in here a lot, it remembers where I've been, but you need to save it into the same reports directory we were just in. Okay, so I showed you how to get to it quickly. Now I'm going to walk through the long route of how do I get into this reports directory. So if I go to browse and I'm just in my personal or my desktop, you need to be in your C drive. So this PC, your C drive, program files, e-manageONE, reports. There they are. So it's the same file path that it opened you up in that shortcut. If you don't remember how to get there, share a tip and trick with you. File, open e-manage file location, reports directory. And guess what? When you go File, Save As in Telerik, I can just copy this file path, go back into my Telerik Report Designer, and I can paste it up here. So long and short ways, right, of doing something. Got something in the way there. Paste. Oops. Paste. Takes me straight there. We want to save it in the same area that all of our other files, our other reports are located. But what we're going to do, best practice that I'll share with you for my dealers who are a little bit more advanced and touch into this area of the program, everyone should be doing it the same way, in my opinion. I think it's a good best practice that I'll share with you. Right in front of the name of the document, if you're just modifying a base report, now if you're creating your own report, you'll give it a name for your own report. But if you're modifying an existing base report, I'm going to always recommend that you put your company name in front of it, whether you spell it out or you use your abbreviation for your company name. We've got some people here, I don't know, Anthony Allen, I would put AA in front of it. Got someone from Christensen's here, but they're now Fluid. I used to put CBF in front of everything. So you get my drift here. Put your initials of your company or spell it out, your whole company name, right in front of the report, the base report name. So I'm going to call this webinar today, just so we can have some things to play with. All right, I'm going to hit save. And now I have a base report overwritten, saved, and I can start making changes. All right. I jumped a little bit ahead. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. For those of you who have never been in here before, when you go into, again, I'm not a Telerik Report Designer expert, but I know enough to get me by with e-manage stuff, right? So if you want to really get advanced, I would suggest going to take some Telerik Report Designer lessons. They've got some good stuff out there on YouTube as well. You can go check out their channel and hop in and see what kind of additional knowledge you can gain from there. It will go really deep though. So in relation to e-manage, what you'll see here over on my right side is a report explorer. These are two tabs that I'm in quite often. This right panel, I'm going to touch on quite a bit. But over here on this right side, this report explorer is telling me everything that I have on this report. So if I start clicking in these boxes, it highlights them and you can see that it's connected. If you look down here, it'll actually show you what the value is in that field. Okay, some of our reports are a little bit more updated where they're labeled a lot better. Like this one says company name. Well, it's tied to fields.company name. How does it know what fields are available in this report? Well, if you pop into the Data Explorer, these are all the different fields that e-manage has decided are important to the purchase order document. Most of them are already dropped on here. Some of them have been added per a company request. If you hop into here and you're like, inside of my data explorer, and I'll go backwards a little bit on this data explorer. But if I hop into this data explorer and I don't see, I don't know, quote number, quote ID, and I want that to be a part of my purchase order, I don't know that it's possible or not. You have to reach out to support and say, is that a field that can be added so that I can add it into my custom purchase order report? They'll determine if it's possible. There are joins and tables, and we're not going to get into all of that that are happening behind the scenes that either make it possible or not possible. If it is, we might add it in to where you can now access it. We're not going to add it to the report unless we get that request over and over and over from our customers. But if it's just a one-off and we can add it in, but then you can go add it into your custom report, we'll definitely add it in as a field there. But if you first hop into, if you're following along on your computer, I would maybe suggest to not do that for this particular training. It can be a little bit hard to download all of this information. This is all like a foreign language to me sometimes, so I would imagine it's going to be kind of tough on you guys. But if anybody's been experiencing this before, maybe it's a little easier. So I'll leave it up to you, but I would suggest just paying attention to my screen for now. But if you pop into this data explorer and you don't see anything and it says that you don't have a source connected, that would be the very first step. I would reach out to support. You've got to find out if you're on the cloud, then we can give you a basically a connection string. If I'm speaking to that properly as far as terminology goes, they would give you a way to go into your Telerik Report Designer, hop into file. I don't want to click it because I'm connected to our main source, which has like my SQL server password and everything like that. But you basically hop into options. In fact, I believe there might be something in here. It's not in there, but I do think we have something that I can show you, at least a screenshot of it. So it would look something like this when you hop into options. You connect it to a source. And if you're on your own server, if you're not in our cloud setup, then you're going to have to get access to, like, through your IT team, unless you already have your server username and password. But you will have to get that information to plug it in. If you're on-prem and you host e-manage on site, if you're on our cloud, reach out to us and we'll help you get this all set up, because you need to build that connection in order to see this data explorer area and what fields you have available to drop into this report. All right, so some setup that has to be done first. Again, reach out to us, let us know what you need, and we'll guide you and get you all squared away. Once all that's out of the way, then we can start playing. Okay. Telerik, we are looking at updating it here pretty soon, so it might change. It's just going to get better. If you can get through this version of it, the newer version, of course, is going to be a little bit more user friendly, I would imagine. So it can be a little bit tricky in this older version, in my opinion. Things like, getting around the different sections of your report and just being able to maneuver around it can sometimes be tricky. I personally am self-taught on this, and sometimes it takes, and I'm going to show you in just a little bit, sometimes it takes loading the report into your system, looking at it inside of e-manage, because unfortunately there's not a previewer in here, but you got to look at it inside of e-manage, and you might do some back and forth. You might, make a change, look at it in e-manage, make it another adjustment, look at it in e-manage. If you're the actual designer and creator of the report, I'll show you that you don't have to resave it over and over while you're making those modifications, but at the end, you'll want to save the final version back into e-manage so that your users can access that updated report. All right, so how do I make changes? I'm inside of my purchase order report here, and I've renamed it. That's step one. And now I want to add some additional text to this section, maybe above the Mark 4 special instructions, maybe below it. Either way, this section is way too small to do anything with it. So I'm just going to maximize my space here. So I'm just dragging my cursor down, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit more space. Then what I'm going to do is decide, do I want it on top or on bottom? I'll give you a trick for moving fields around and keeping them all in line. Your control keys, just like in a majority of the programs that we work with these days, your control keys select multiple fields. And now I can just use my down arrow, move it down. Okay. So moving fields around, super easy. Maybe you want to, I don't know, line things up differently. Okay, you got all your formatting tools up here. You can resize fields. Just placing your cursor over these different fields are going to give you options of resizing. And then, of course, highlighting and changing text size and text type, things like that. You want to put a border around it. You'll see your border area here. The reformatting, fairly easy. Moving fields around, pretty easy. You can just move this around. Okay, hit the undo button to move it back. Little things like that, pretty easy to do. But I want to add something. I'm going to go into insert and I'm going to use an HTML text box. This means I can format it and it just adds a box. Then I can move that around. You'll see little things like the lining up of stuff. When you see the red lines, most of our stuff is already lined up. And so you'll see the red line show up when you get in line with something. If you want to line it up with this, you can see it lines up with that. Typically, we're going to be seeing that red line to line things up properly. Make it bigger if you want. And I'm just going to drop something in here just so we can send acknowledgements to Shift Enter, or Enter works, but Shift Enter will get you right underneath it. And you can say to, acknowledgements at marketplacesoftware.com. Okay. You can also right click and go to expression. So just a couple different ways to do things here. And you'll see a bigger text box. So you have some room to play with, still your formatting tools in here. That was a right click expression. And then you can actually start to add fields in here as well. So a couple different ways to do this. Maybe there's something you want to drop in here. This is not the best example, but I want to show you how it works. If I go to fields down here and I just say I want the project ID to print here, I just double clicked and it puts that field in there. Okay. And I hit OK. You can also grab things from your right panel and drag and drop it. Couple different ways to grab fields that are available to you to tie to fields in eManage and place them on your report. Okay. To remove things, highlight, delete, easy enough. I think you can also right click, delete. So right click and copy, paste, typical functions that we would see in a lot of other programs we've all worked in for a long time. Use that right click, double clicks, things like that to get around these different fields inside of here. So I'm going to start basic. This is as basic as I can get. There's a lot more to these reports that we're going to talk about a little bit more today, but just slight modifications. Now I want to save it. So you can see I haven't saved yet. I've already saved as, so I know that I'm in an overridden report, and I'm going to hit that save button. Okay. Or if you go file, save, that's fine too. But I use a little shortcut up here, the little disk. No more saves to be done when it's grayed out. And I'm going to hop back over into eManage. And I want to see this report and be able to view it and see what I've done. So there's a couple different things you have to do first. Again, all documented in the help guide. So make sure you go use that as a resource to support this learning curve. And I'm going to go to Tools at the top, Custom Reports, and I'm going to add it first. So right now it lives outside of eManage. All I've done is save it into a folder outside of eManage. I want to save it into eManage, and then I can talk about how to make it an alternative. So first we're going to go Custom Reports, Add Remove Custom Reports, and I'm going to go Browse to it. Okay. Again, got to know where to get to. I recommend another little tip and trick. I have my reports directory pinned to my quick access. So go locate that. Just open up a file folder. There's a file folder I was already on. I'm in reports. You can just grab this reports. Oh, how do you do this now? New way. Right click. Nope. I'm going to back up. e-manageONE. Reports, grab this, drag and drop it into your pin to quick access, drag it, or right click, pin to quick access. I have this saved as a quick way to get into it because when I am saving reports back in, I don't want to have to go C drive, program files, e-manageONE, reports. I just have it saved really quickly. All right, so reports. Oh, got to name it first. Am I in the right? I'm going to start over. Okay, so I'm in Tools, Custom Reports, Add, Remove Custom Reports, and I'm going to browse to it and grab my reports directory, and I name this Webinar 1PO. There it is. So double click, drops it in there, and now I want to give it a description. Try to name these according to what you did, right? If I purchase order with acknowledgements instructions would be my example for this one. I'm just going to call this webinar test 1 for now. You don't have to do anything else on this bottom section. We're keeping things really simple for now. I'm going to add it in. What this is doing is allowing now other users, because this is saved in my reports directory on my C drive, this is my personal files, my program files. Everyone's files are different. So if you have someone who also wants to be able to print this purchase order version, they are going to go into Tools, Custom Reports, and download custom reports to my computer. And the way that they are able to grab that is it's connected to this area of the program. Okay, so we've dropped it into our, what I would call maybe your company reports directory instead of your personal reports directory. We're dropping it into an area where now they can go download it, and it's going to add a copy to their reports directory. Okay, and you'll see that it's been loaded from my program files, okay, created by me and when and all that. So all I've done so far is loaded it into my reports for the whole company, but I also need to create an alternative. So I want to tell the system, instead of printing marketplace software or e-manageONE's base report, I want to be able to print my own report. So I'm going to go into now Tools, Custom Reports, Configure Report Alternatives. And I'm going to tell it, I have to call up the original report. So it was called 1PO. I'm just going to start typing and narrow it down and grab it. You can see I had a lot of different companies in there. And I want to replace it with, so the original report, I'm going to replace it with, as an option, with my webinar 1PO. Options here, you can make it a default. So what that means is it pops up in the report alternative. We'll see it in just a moment. It'll start to click and make more sense. But it pops up as the selection. It's not going to auto print it automatically unless we take it one step further, which I'm going to go over. This is just going to make it pop up in the drop-down selection automatically. Give it a description. Usually this would be purchase order with acknowledgement instructions, probably the same description that I used for my naming convention in the reports directory for the company. So now I've told it this is an alternative. And now when I go to print, you'll still get the normal pop-ups. It says select it recognizes that someone's put an alternative in here, and do you want to use this one? So this one would say purchase order with acknowledgements instructions, whatever you named it. Now I have options here. If I tell it to remember my choice, I'm never going to get this alternatives available pop up again. It's always going to print this one. So you might have an area of the program where you use multiple alternatives. In that case, never click that. I would say safe route is just to never click that unless you know for sure that this is the only report that I want to print in this area of the program ever again. This gives you the option to use our original as well. So the base report that eManage has canned built into the system. Okay. If I do remember my choice by accident, which I'm going to recreate this scenario, I'm going to show you where you can go and reverse that. Okay, because sometimes we make mistakes. We're human. So I'm going to hit remember my choice and hit continue. Otherwise, just continue is a safe route. And you can see here, send acknowledgments to. If you use links like this, it does create an actual hyperlink. So if you put your website or a link to another good example of an alternative report would be on your customer invoices, a link to pay their invoice. Maybe you have some type of setup you can do that. QuickBooks allows links like that. You can go pay it. I don't know. Anyway, just as an example, it does create a hyperlink. I also added in the project ID. See, it's pointing to 7749. Questions so far? I know that's a lot of information. Might have to watch this video a couple of times, but you'll get it. So far, what we've done, just as a little quick recap, we've opened up the reports directory by going File, Open eManage File Location, Reports Directory. We opened up one PO. We renamed it first. We made some changes. We hopped back into eManage. We uploaded it into the reports directory, add, remove, and we configured a report alternative. All right, so now every single time that I go to print this, normal pop-up, but then it's just going to take me straight to that report because I told it to remember my choice. I'm going to pause and let anybody type anything out if you did have questions. While you guys are soaking all that in, if I accidentally told it to remember my choice and I would be able to use the base report or another alternative report that I now can't access, you're just going to go to Tools, Configure, User Settings. And when you hop into this one, you're going to see a Reports tab at the top. I'm sorry, Remembered Report Settings. And there it is. And it's not the original. All right, so I'm just going to hit Delete Selected. You're just telling it to delete a remembered report. And now when I go back in here and print, normal pop-up, I'll get my alternatives available again. Clear as mud? I hope so. Tom's chatting in. He has an issue when he uses that button to remember the report doesn't print properly. But when I select the same report, it does work. Not sure I understand fully. What do you mean when you select the same report? Like when you just hit continue? It prints properly, but for some reason when you hit remember my choice, it doesn't print. Let's look at that offline. That shouldn't be the case. My best guess would be that you're remembering a different report, that there might be multiple alternatives. It should print exactly the same way. I just did it on mine and it printed the same way, but there could be something deeper going on there. So why don't you go ahead and shoot a ticket over to the support team, let them know you attended the webinar and let them know what report you're actually printing, what alternative you're actually using, and what area of the program you're in. Give them all the details. I'll try to, if you want to copy, add me into the ticket, or if I have somebody in support, if you need to loop me in on this, I'm happy to help and look into that. All right, so let's dig a little deeper into the reports, what else we can do. All right, so back into the reports directory, some things to keep in mind when you are modifying reports here. There are sometimes tucked in there subreports, meaning that this is the outline of the report, but tucked into it might be an additional report tied to different details. So this one's kind of hard to see. You can, if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see that it says subreport, depending on how far you're zoomed in, what your percentage is. Play with that a little bit too. Sometimes it helps to zoom in and zoom out. I'm just using my mouse pad and regular zoom in functionality, or you can use in the bottom left corner. But you can see here it says subreport. Well, how do I know what subreport is tied to this? When I start clicking on things inside of this report, you'll see that this properties down here, they change. And so you can see, oh, if you go all the way down to the bottom, it'll actually tell you the report source. So far, I've opened up the main one PO report. I made some changes, but I didn't actually make any changes to this detail area. So you can see if you look at this particular report, I'm trying to use the most simplest report that I know of that you might actually want to make changes to. Some of these reports can be very, very intricate and difficult to work in, and it just takes some going back and forth. So what I'm seeing here is you can see project, job, salesperson, and then right underneath it, subreport, and then it goes straight into the footer. If you go into eManage, you'll see there's a lot more inside tucked in there. And you're like, well, how do I make changes to this? Maybe I don't want line number showing, or I want to make part number different, or whatever it might be. You can't access it right here because it's tucked into a subreport. So again, scroll down to the very bottom over here, and it'll tell you the report source is PO details. So now I need to go open up that one. So I'm going to File, hopping into Computer, my reports, and I'm going to PO details and opening that up. You can have multiple open, kind of like how eManage works with tabs in here. And now I can start making some changes to this one after I save it. Save as, always first, into your reports directory. And I'm going to call this, again, your company name at the beginning. That's best practice. That way, when you scroll into your reports, you can see like System Center, they label all of theirs SC. So these are all of System Center's custom reports. Yes, you can see that Stefan dabbles in this quite often, but he's got some other people in here too. All right. Sorry, File, Save As, Reports, Webinar is your company name, and save. Now it named it, and now I can start making changes. So I'm just gonna do something real crazy just gonna delete some stuff just to show you how it changes. Now I'm not gonna have any descriptions or anything. You would never do that. Just as an example, I'm gonna save it, but I go back into eManage and I refresh, and it didn't remove the description and the part number. So I'm like, what did I do? Hop back over here. In my main report, I still have this tied to PO details. So I got to come in here, and you can either hit the little 3 dots or you can hop right in front of it, I believe, and just start typing webinar. Oh, no, you can't. Okay, sorry. Hit the little 3 dots and then rename it to be connected to the subreport that you just saved. And save. Now when I hop over here, I hit refresh again, and it removed it. So you can play and make lots of changes here. I'm going to do something else here, crazy. I don't know, vendor, I'm going to capitalize it. Little things like this, so easy to do. Save. Hop back into eManage, refresh. Now it's capitalized. However, it has not been saved. I haven't even loaded my PO details subreport into the reports directory. So if your user, you go to your user and you said, all right, I did everything, and they go to print the purchase order and they're like, mine doesn't look like yours. They need to go to Tools, Custom Reports, download custom reports to my computer. They go in there again and they're like, no, it still doesn't look right. Okay, you might have missed a step. So you got to go Tools, Custom Reports, add or remove custom reports. I made a change to the original, so I'm going to highlight it and say upload changed files. So if you're making changes to something you've already placed in your reports directory, upload change files, but I also need to put in here the subreport. Again, same way we just did it. I'm going to call this webinar PO details subreport. Add. Now, I don't have to go and do this step because I've already made it an alternative. Okay. So you don't need to do that again. I don't want to make the subreport an alternative. It's just the base report. I'm sorry, the main base report. All right, so now it's in there. Your other user would go tools, custom reports, download custom reports to my computer, and then they would go print it and see exactly the way that you're on your computer. Eden asking a good question. Anytime you make changes, you have to go add, remove, highlight, upload changes. Yep. Then go in. Then your user would go into download reports. The report lives on your computer. Whoever the creator is, you don't have to go to download base reports because that report is already in your reports directory. But any other users that would need to access this, yes, they would also need to go in and download the reports. Mark, good question. He says this would never happen. You'd be surprised. But if what if someone saves a custom report over the original? Technically, it would be okay until we put out a next update. And then I believe that your reports would just be overrode and then you would lose any changes that you made. It has happened before. So very important to name your reports before you start making any changes. If you start making changes, sorry, I cut out there for just a second. Again, going back to Mark's questions, Mark's really great question. If someone overrode the original, you can before the next update, you want to get the base report back. You can always go to help download base reports. Eden found out this is where she missed a step on her TNCs. TNCs are quite different. Very, very tricky thing about TNCs that I will share with you guys is that technically we're uploading the TNCs into the actual bill of materials area of the program. And it's not actually a report alternative. Our quote automatically knows there's something in the system that points to your TNCs once you load it in here. So my best practice, my tip and trick that I can share for terms and conditions is because when you, again, I'm just going to walk through this fairly quickly. When I hop into my quote settings, if you're on this call and you guys are not using a standard set of terms and conditions, please reach out to me directly. I can share some samples from other companies that they're using. Very important to put that in place, your terms and conditions. We're talking about all those CYAs, that legal jargon that you want to put in to cover yourself when you're sending out a quote, any changes to labor that can incur additional charges, all those different things that you want to cover. Going back to Eden's comment, just so we're all on the same page, because it's a very good point, we're actually loading terms and conditions in here, and it doesn't live in the reports directory. And so if, let's say, Eden at Workspace Group, hi Eden, loads up terms and conditions in here, and she did it on her computer, and then Eden leaves the company. Not going to happen, right, Eden? But Eden leaves the company, and now someone needs to make a change to their terms and conditions. It would live in her reports directory, and no one else would have access to it. And so now the wheel has to be recreated. So my best tip that I can share, if you're someone who deals with terms and conditions and modifying them as things change in the company and in the, shipping world of things, and things are changing all the time, I would also suggest adding it into your reports directory. So for Eden's point, yes, come in here, upload it in here, and upload the change files, but you also have to go in here, new view, and highlight and upload the changes here as well. So it's one area of the report designer that we're doing this upload, the changes, in two different places. Technically, it's not required in the main reports directory, but I would absolutely suggest it. Okay, hopefully that helps. Yeah, really good point. Ian says this is one thing that seems to change an update more than anything. Ideally, once you have your, let's say, your purchase order, the way you want it printed, and you have your invoice exactly the way you print it, it's going to be rare that you go in and actually change it very often, few and far between. But our terms and conditions do change, from time to time. Um, so I highly suggest uploading it in both places. I do believe that there is a video out there specifically on terms and conditions that I would highly recommend you watching as well. Yeah, absolutely reach out to us, Eden. All right, so going back to the actual report designer, um, any specific questions on how you might be able to do something? This was really, I really wanted to at least get us an intro on how you can make changes to the base reports and create report alternatives. If you want to know more about how you can create customs, like, um, uh, we're typically dealing with report alternatives. eManage, the base reports usually have most of what we need, and then you want to slightly tweak it. But if you're looking to create something completely from scratch, I would have to get you connected with our report designer for sure. Colors on the headers and stuff, yeah. Um, So that's gonna be as much as Telerik will allow you to, there's like, colors that you can change here if you wanna change the way it highlights or the actual text changing of colors. That's up here in the formatting section. But yeah, pretty easy to change colors if you wanna add some pizzazz to your reports. Absolutely. Headers like here, this is all one big block. So yeah, another easy way to change. Good question. And then again, as I'm making changes in here and I go back and I want to see what it looks like, have that open and just hit the refresh. Oh, I'll have to come back and visit that to see what I did wrong there. But it should be an easy enough way to just refresh it. Tom, is there any way to calculate interest on an invoice? I.e., if you don't pay within X amount of days, then your total will. Yes, very good question. Let me open up the invoice report. So this one is called invoice, and tucked in there is a sub-report. So I'm highlighting that sub-report section and scrolling down, and I can see that that sub-report is called invoice details. So I'm going to go ahead and open up both because in the invoice details is where like the numbers probably reside. Again, first things first, file, save as, and give it a new name. Okay, I'm going to hop back in over here, file, save as. Okay, and then I'm going to change my sub-report to point to the right one. Hit that three little dots, the little review here, webinar, invoice details. All right, so now I have this basically ready to start making changes. This is a report that can be pretty complicated to look at. Our quote report and the invoice report are two of my um, toughest challenges, I believe. There might be some more tucked in there, but these are reports that I do have to look at fairly often. And you can see there's just like layers on top of layers here. So sometimes it takes like going through the actual report explorer to find what this is actually tied to. Again, in the report explorer, I can click on these text boxes and see what the value is. Okay. I'm not even going to talk about bindings, and there's a lot of different things that are happening here to make it print a certain way. There are different, like, for example, my Canada customers have like a field in here called GST, PST, things like that, that calculate their tax differently. Fields that my US clients aren't using, but it is on the base report. If you want to remove it, if you're a US client and you just want to get rid of it, you can. Just, use that undo button, have the invoice window open, do some refreshing, and you might have to go back and forth. But I guess in a nutshell, to answer your question, is it just takes finding the right field. So you might take your total And maybe you expand this out a little bit and you take this total here and you have to come up with a calculation and say times a certain percentage. So maybe add a text box here that says, um, maybe add a text box that says, if paid late, the calculated interest would be, you got to figure out how you want it to actually be. And then you grab this total field, and I might copy it and paste it, but then take a peek at what this is. If Ravi, you're on the call and I'm doing this wrong, you tell me right now. So the answer is yes. It's determining how to do that best. I just totally messed this up, but that's why we have that lovely undo button. I would right click and go to the expression and figure out how to, maybe it's adding, and I could be doing this wrong. So it might just be reaching out to support and my report experts rather than if it's something specifically you want to do. I want to calculate the total times a percentage. He might be able to just, he or she, Mariah is very good at this as well, might be able to give you the expression to paste into the field. Like they'll point you in the direction of what field that needs to be and the expression that you could use and just calculate that. So then it's a closed bracket all the way around. I think I did that right. One more bracket. So some of it requires like you knowing how to do some, I think this is called SQL queries, but it's expressions in here. And then I would save it and try to go test it. Does that help, Tom? Okay. So glad. I have to play with it sometimes. I do say, once you figure out where you want it to be and what you want it to look like, then it's just a matter of uploading it in the right way, popping into the area that you would want to see that report, making it an alternative, and doing some refreshing. Any other questions? Good stuff so far. I think I covered the basics that I wanted to cover, but definitely don't hesitate to reach out via email. Maybe something comes up as you're playing with it, and that could be something that this group would find informational, and I can share it with this whole group if there's something that I find might be helpful. Yeah, good question. The um, download custom reports. That should be all that they need if you're uploading it in the right place. And in fact, I don't even think it requires the download custom reports, but um, it doesn't hurt either. So the biggest thing that I think maybe you might be missing, because I just walked through um, report alternatives again with the terms and conditions. It's not a report alternative. So it's just a matter of modifying your terms and conditions, which you can see here. I can probably pull up yours, in fact, WSR, and I don't have it. I might just have to go into your database and download it. But again, it's in the quote settings to actually upload it for your other users to see it. I believe the only step that is required is to go into Telerik, make sure it's named properly, hop into your quote settings, click that new view button on your terms and conditions drop down area. And if you already have one in here and it was loaded in by you, you can just simply highlight it and say upload changes. If it was uploaded probably by me, Eden, the original, then you need to delete it and re-add it. It's on any quote. Yeah, we upload it one time into this terms and conditions configuration window. So I would say, let me grab somebody's. I know I got to have somebody's terms and conditions in here. Here we go. Oh, So I'm naming it, I'm browsing to it, I'm saving it. That's all that's necessary for terms and conditions. I've loaded it in here. Now every user can come in here and grab this one and print it. Now, what I'm recommending is to go one step further and also upload it in to your reports directory, which is under Tools, Custom Reports, Add, Remove Custom Reports. Okay, so this one, scroll all the way down. That's a long quote. And this is that terms and conditions that I just loaded in. Very lengthy terms and conditions. Again, I think what the step that you might be missing is that it was originally loaded in by an admin, probably myself, when we originally implemented you. So if you go into your quote settings, you hit New View, and it says your TNCs here, but it says created by Stephanie, or if Marisa uploaded it, or I'm not sure who uploaded it. Maybe it says admin. It probably says admin. You need to delete that, because if you click that and you hit upload changes, it's trying to connect it to the original person, which this can't access that original person's files. So again, if it says created by anyone other than yourself, if you're dealing with TNCs, highlight, delete, and re-upload it. So fill in the top section and save. That might be the missing step. But yeah, reach out to us if you via support. Hopefully you guys all got my email recently. We want you to be going through the help desk, send a help request, filling in a form to get as much information from you guys as possible so that we can resolve your issues as quickly as possible. Yeah, any issues that you guys are having from this webinar, please go reach out to support first. They'll get me involved if it requires additional training. If you have like questions, comments, how are other dealers doing this? What's dealer best practice? Those are types of things definitely to funnel through me. Awesome. Good questions and comments. Hopefully that gives you guys enough to start getting a little dangerous in here. Everything can always be undone, so don't be scared to start playing with it. You can create alternatives and see what it's going to look like. And then your users, if they get that alternative box that pops up, just give them a heads up. Hey, I'm working on a custom report in the purchase order. Talk to your purchase order team and let them know that you're working on something. So for now, just to hit continue, to hit use original and then continue. So again, that's, if you are playing in here and you're not quite ready to totally release it to everybody, print selected, any report that you're trying to make an alternative, tell them to use the original or maybe a different alternative that you already have in place, that you're playing with something, and just to use original and continue. Don't be afraid to get in there. You always have the original to fall back on, or maybe some other customs that someone else has helped create for you, but you want to make some modifications. But I think I'm going to leave it at that. There are no further questions. Hopefully this information helps. I'll get this out on the YouTube channel. I've been a little bit slow to get these out on the YouTube channel, but by the end of tomorrow, I should have all of them uploaded, and we'll probably put out an email blast to everyone where to access the March webinar series in case they want to catch up. Missed it. Appreciate you guys showing up. Reach out to us if you have any questions or issues. Sounds good. See you guys later. Have a good one.